Hello, this is Danny Ceballos with day 26 in your 28-day leadership challenge for our learning and development series, Leading in the New Normal. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about, we're going to continue with the notion that we've started to talk about over the past couple of days about what it takes to understand and lead systems and communities. And today we're going to talk about how culture, and we're talking about kind of organizational culture, not necessarily culture around identity, but culture in terms of how to create the kind of environment and atmosphere and water for your folks to swim in as you're leading them in this community, in this system. So we're going to be using a model that is primarily developed by Edward Skine, and he developed this model quite a few years ago to help us understand how to work with organizational culture. And he basically says that we can think of, and this is what I want you to think of for your community, three different layers of culture. So the first is what we see, meaning when your community comes together, what do we see with each other? So is it about what people are wearing? Is it about signage? Is it about the context of the room where folks are meeting, whether that's virtual or three-dimensional? What is it that people see that actually helps to reinforce the kind of culture that you are trying to establish? So for instance, do you have signs around that say our rules of engagement are X, Y, and Z, or our values are A, B, C? All those kinds of things are really good indications of what we can see. We call them cultural artifacts, the things that we can see that, again, support our culture. The second layer is what we say, meaning what do we say to each other? What are the words that we use? What are the language that we have that work and how we work with each other? And again, this can be in the form of this is how we will conduct ourselves, a document or a charter that says something like that. But again, what we're trying to do is to get what we see and what we say aligned and to pay attention to both of those layers. But just like an iceberg, the majority of the iceberg is below the water. So below what we see and what we say is what we know. And this is where we really want to pay attention. So once you've got the what we see in place, right, you've got all the cultural artifacts, all the things that we can see that reinforce what we're trying to establish with our community. Then we think about what we say. So what are we saying to each other? How are we messaging each other? But lastly is what we know. And this is where the real crux lies. So what we need to do is to really identify what are people saying to each other that aren't necessarily reflecting the values that we put out in what we say, and what we see. And what do we know? When we have what we know actually collides with what we see and what we say. In other words, people are saying things to each other that aren't necessarily reinforced by the documents or the signage, the visible or the auditory components. Then we have something that we call undiscussables. Undiscussables are those things that exist below the surface of our culture that are really hard to understand and appreciate unless we surface them, unless we say to folks, what exactly is going on for you? So here's the thing, folks. It's important for you to make sure that you're paying attention to all three layers, the what we see, what we say, and then what we know. When what we know does not align with what we see and say, we call those undiscussables. And so the charge for you, or the exercise that I want you to do today, is to spend 5 minutes thinking about a community that you lead and how can you best surface those undiscussables. What are the questions? What are the things that you need to do? Who are the people that you need to talk to in order to surface those undiscussables? Don't be afraid of them, welcome them. We're looking for them to help us understand how to best create the kind of culture that we want. And then spend a few seconds thinking about what could be a plan for discussing undiscussables. How can you reach people so that they can have the kinds of conversations with you and with each other that they need to have in order to make sure that all three layers of the iceberg are aligned and together, that people are agreeing with what you see and what you say. Sometimes it takes some outside help with that. Sometimes you can do it on your own, but it's important right now that you consider what you will do. All right, And that's it for today. I hope today's lesson on organizational culture, as it applies to leading communities and systems, resonates for you. It's an interesting twist on things, but I want you to pay some attention to it and really think about how you can surface those undiscussables and what you will do with them. All right, take care. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye now.